The 2026 FIFA World Cup is just months away, but instead of excitement, anticipation, and celebration, the build-up is being dominated by backlash, fear, and controversies.
Well, as immigration tensions escalate, the former president of FIFA is supporting a boycott of the upcoming 2026 World Cup.
The world's biggest game was supposed to bring the world together. Instead, it is threatening to pull it apart. Long before the first ball is kicked, before the anthems, before the packed stadiums and global celebrations, a shadow has already fallen over the 2026 World Cup. Not a shadow created by war or disease or financial collapse, but by fear. Fear of borders, fear of rejection, fear of humiliation, fear that a tournament built on unity may quietly exclude millions before it even begins. Across social media, a new sentence keeps appearing, written in dozens of languages, but carrying the same meaning. I'm not going. Fans who dreamed of witnessing history are canceling tickets they haven't even bought yet. Supporters who waited their entire lives to see the World Cup live are saying no. And they are not saying no to football. They are saying no to the idea of feeling unwanted. This was meant to be America's moment, a once-in-a-generation chance to welcome the world, to host the largest World Cup ever staged, shared across 3 nations, watched by billions. But instead of celebration, the conversation has turned darker. Whispers of boycotts, warnings from officials, doubts from sponsors. The question now is no longer how spectacular the 2026 World Cup will be. The question is whether the world still feels safe enough to show up. When FIFA awarded the 2026 World Cup to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, the announcement was framed as historic. It was the first time 3 nations would co-host the tournament. It would feature a record number of teams, a record number of matches, and a reach unlike anything football had ever seen. For the United States, it was a return to the global stage, the first World Cup hosted on American soil since 1994. That tournament had been remembered as a success, one that helped ignite the growth of soccer across the country. This time, the ambition was even larger. New stadiums, massive fan zones, billions in projected economic impact. The World Cup was not just coming back to America, it was coming back bigger, louder, and more powerful than ever before. But as the years passed and the countdown continued, the global mood began to shift. Immigration policies tightened. Visa requirements became more complex. Processing times grew longer and less predictable. For fans traveling from Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, the journey to the World Cup started to feel uncertain before it even began. The problem was not just bureaucracy, it was perception. Stories began circulating online about travelers being pulled aside for hours of questioning, about visas denied without explanation, about families turned away after years of planning. Some of these stories were anecdotal. Some were impossible to independently verify. But in the age of social media, perception often matters more than documentation. Once fear enters the conversation, it spreads faster than facts ever could. For many fans, especially those from regions that have historically faced greater scrutiny at borders, the idea of traveling to the United States started to feel like a gamble. A Nigerian supporter described saving for years, only to have his visa application rejected with no clear reason. A Pakistani family spoke openly about their fear that a minor error in paperwork could lead to detention or deportation. Fans from parts of the Middle East worried about being treated with suspicion simply because of their nationality or religion. These concerns did not emerge in a vacuum. International human rights organizations have repeatedly raised alarms about inconsistent treatment at U.S. ports of entry. Even the possibility of facing such treatment was enough to change behavior. Football fans are passionate, but passion does not erase fear. And slowly, the idea of attending the World Cup in the United States began to feel less like a dream and more like a risk. What makes this moment so striking is the contrast between what the World Cup represents and what many fans now fear it could become. The tournament has always been sold as a celebration of global unity, a place where politics fade and sport takes center stage, where flags wave side by side and strangers embrace in shared joy. But unity requires openness. And openness requires trust. When fans begin to question whether they will even be allowed through the door, the entire foundation starts to crack. This is not just about football, it is about dignity, about the basic expectation of being welcomed rather than suspected. As the conversation grew louder online, it began to attract attention from powerful voices. Former officials, politicians, and commentators started weighing in. The most shocking moment came when Sepp Blatter, the former president of FIFA and one of the architects behind bringing the World Cup back to the United States, issued a warning. He urged fans to think carefully before traveling to America for the tournament. Coming from someone who once championed the US as a host nation, the message landed like an earthquake. It signaled that the concerns were no longer confined to social media. They had reached the highest levels of the football world. In Europe, the debate intensified. Supporter groups began discussing whether they should formally advise fans against traveling. Some politicians suggested national football federations consider issuing travel warnings or offering legal assistance to citizens who choose to attend matches in the United States. The conversation was no longer hypothetical. It was becoming institutional. At the same time, major human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch voiced concerns that any barriers perceived to be based on nationality or religion directly contradict the spirit of the World Cup. A tournament built on equality cannot survive long under accusations of exclusion. Yet through all of this, FIFA's official response remained cautious, almost silent. Preparations continued. Match schedules were released. Host cities moved forward with construction and planning. Tickets were prepared for sale. On the surface, everything looked normal, but silence in moments of uncertainty can be dangerous. Without clear reassurance, doubt fills the gap, and doubt is contagious. The impact of this growing skepticism is no longer limited to emotions or online debate. It is beginning to show real economic consequences. The World Cup is not just a sporting event. It is a massive financial machine powered by sponsorships, tourism, and global advertising. Brands like Adidas, Visa, and Emirates have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in anticipation of packed stadiums and worldwide attention. These companies are not driven by sentiment. They are driven by numbers, and the numbers depend on fans showing up. Sports economists have started to outline a troubling scenario. If a significant portion of international fans decide not to travel, stadiums in American host cities could be left with thousands of empty seats. The loss would not stop at ticket revenue. Hotels, restaurants, transport services, and local businesses have all been preparing for an unprecedented influx of visitors. The World Cup was projected to generate billions of dollars for the US economy. But projections are built on confidence. Once confidence erodes, so do expectations. Even a small dip in international attendance could translate into massive losses across multiple sectors. Behind closed doors, sponsors are reportedly adjusting their strategies. Rather than focusing solely on US host cities, some are quietly shifting parts of their campaigns toward Canada and Mexico. It is a subtle move, but a telling one. Money follows stability. And right now, the perception of stability is not evenly distributed across the three host nations. While the United States grapples with growing skepticism, Canada and Mexico are experiencing a very different reaction. Fans around the world increasingly describe these countries as safer, more predictable, and more welcoming. Canadian visa policies are widely viewed as transparent and consistent. Mexico, with its deep football culture and history of hosting major tournaments, carries an emotional connection that resonates with fans from South America, Europe, and beyond. Online discussions reveal a clear trend. Many supporters are planning to attend matches in Toronto, Vancouver, Mexico City, or Guadalajara, while skipping games in the United States entirely. The World Cup may be shared, but trust is not. This shift has not gone unnoticed. According to multiple reports, FIFA is closely monitoring the situation. No official announcements have been made, but the possibility of reallocating certain matches has entered the conversation. Even the idea of such a move would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Now it feels plausible. The tournament will still happen. That much seems certain. But where its emotional center lies is suddenly an open question. At its core, this controversy is about more than visas or border control. It is about soft power, the ability of a nation to attract and inspire, not through force or policy, but through values and openness. Hosting the World Cup is one of the most powerful tools of soft power a country can possess. It is a chance to shape global perception, to tell a story about who you are and what you stand for. Right now, that story is being challenged. This is not the first time global sports have collided with politics. The Olympics have faced boycotts. Previous World Cups have been overshadowed by controversy. But 2026 is unfolding in a unique moment. This is the first World Cup of the fully connected digital age, where a single story can reach millions in minutes and shape opinion before official statements even exist. Trust has become a form of currency, and once lost, it is painfully difficult to regain. As the countdown continues, the stakes keep rising. The United States still has time to address these fears, to send a clear message that the world is welcome. Clear policies, transparent processes, public guarantees of fair treatment. Without them, uncertainty will continue to grow, and uncertainty is the enemy of celebration. Meanwhile, Canada and Mexico are quietly strengthening their position, not through statements, but through perception. They are being seen as reliable partners, as open doors in a moment of global hesitation. This is not a victory decided by goals or trophies, it is a victory of image. And in the modern world, image can matter just as much as reality. So now the question returns, sharper than ever. Is the 2026 World Cup boycott movement just online noise that will fade once the matches begin? Or is it a warning sign of a deeper crisis of confidence in one of the tournament's main hosts? Should FIFA intervene to protect the integrity and inclusiveness of its biggest event? Or should it trust that excitement will ultimately overcome fear? The answer will shape not just this World Cup, but how the world remembers it. Because long after the final whistle blows, what will endure is not only who lifted the trophy, but who felt welcome enough to be there in the first place.